put a smile on your face when you're moving from place to place. Good morning, good morning.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Tobago Updates Television. I am Adanna Combie, and we continue conversations this morning in studio as we speak about Budget 2025. And at this point in time, we speak with Dr. Denise Tsoiafatt Angus, the political leader of the IDA, as we go through Budget 2025. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Ms. Combie, and good morning, the people of Tobago and Trinidad and Tobago and wherever you are.
That's right. And it's the day after budget. Budget was read. The request was 3.8 billion and the allocation 2.599 billion, a shortfall of $1.2 billion here for us on the island of Tobago. First and foremost, what do you think about the budget presentation, primarily the conversation around the Tobago?
Well, if you sum it up in 3 words, after 5.5 hours, you must put the word punishment in there. Neglect and manipulation. That's how I would sum it up.
I hear a lot of people talking about the neglect part, and sometimes we can feel in Tobago as if we're some people have called us the stepchild, the outside child, the afterthought. So I understand neglect. So tell me about the manipulation aspect of it. Why do you feel?
So here it is. You gave additional resources in the, the recurrent budget. But those additional resources are not to hire anybody. Those additional resources are to satisfy the increase in the $2 that they gave to the public servants. So you may think it's an additional resource that the THA is getting, but it's not. It's just to satisfy that increase that was given to the public sector workers and not private sector workers. And I'm asking if public sector workers shop at a different establishment from private sector workers. Because how do you give an increase to public sector workers and there's nothing for private sector workers? It just does not add up. It's either you do something for all or nothing. But just doing it for a few is quite discriminatory. It is manipulative because we know an election is coming up, so they are attempting to speak to the public sector workers and starve the rest of Tobago. But those public sector workers have families who are in the private sector. Right. So it will come back to bite them.
Right. And, what is the relation in terms of, I might not be asking the right person, but in terms of public to private sector distribution here on the island of Tobago? Do you have any idea as to what percentage? I know we have a large percentage of the workforce in the public sector. Right. And as you said, they do have families who work in the private sector. And, I was just talking with the president of the chamber here in Tobago as it relates to that increase for the public sector. And he's saying that the private sector, it wouldn't really be affected by it. But now you're saying, when you compare the dollars, because if I am working in a supermarket, for instance, and I was getting $20.50. The person in the public sector was also getting $20.50. That's the minimum wage.
Right.
And now here it is tomorrow, you're getting $22.50 and I'm still getting the same. But when we shop at the same supermarkets.
Correct. And it also sets you up for, okay, well, it's best I go and find a job in the public sector because private sector not having any benefits. So you are decreasing the morale of the people in the private sector now to maybe want to go and search for a public sector job because it is perceived that is where, the increases will come.
And creating, to me, as you're saying this now, leaving the private sector and looking for a public sector job, and the types of jobs that are minimum wage is now creating a culture of
mendicancy.
That's right.
Yes. And dependency. And it's unfortunate that seems to be what the government wants to do, to keep us in a dependency state and not see the people of Tobago evolve to be contributors to the national budget. And that is clearly seen in the $95 million cut in the development budget. Okay? Your development budget is there to create vehicles for, and I would say return on investments, to create projects where you can have return on investments. But they have cut the THA's development budget by 95 million for this year, because they got 300 last year. They got what, 205 this year. That's a significant cut. Nobody's talking about that. $95 million cut in your development budget. And then the other thing you're saying was, well, we have given 678 million to other government agencies to spend in Tobago. You know, why do you have a Tobago House of Assembly if you're giving 678 million to your ministries to spend, and you have 205, you know, the $95 million cut? You're not serious about really allowing Tobago to develop. But at the same time, you know, maybe we can understand the hesitancy, because what has this administration shown that they've been able to do with the funds? You know, I made a couple of calls to persons on the ground, you know, to hear their sentiments about the budget. And, you know, there are some people who are saying, well, they agree with it, that Tobago got what it got what they gave, because Tobago not ready, this administration is not ready to show how they have been spending the funds, how they multiply what they've been given. You know, they talk about the highway to nowhere. That is not bringing us any benefits. You spend all this money on that, and there are no benefits to it. So I think Tobagonians are quite mixed in their feelings about what has been given, while they are upset on one hand that the government has not treated Tobago any better. That on the other hand, they're saying, well, they probably could understand because of how this administration has managed the funds.
What do you think about, I want to go back to the fact that ministries in Trinidad have been given the allocation to do projects here on the island of Tobago, instead of putting that as part of the Tobago budget, right? Instead of giving the THA that, because it's part of what we requested. And so now you've given it to other ministries across the central government, and they now are coming to Tobago to do it. What do you think the thought process for that was? One. And two, would Tobago, in terms of the THA, have the decision-making power in the capacity that they should have as it relates to those projects that the central government will be undertaking, the ministries in Trinidad will be undertaking? How is that going to work out in terms of a relationship for us here in Tobago?
Listen, this relationship died from the start of this administration. There's no relationship between the THA and the central government. They maybe have a little forced relationship now because of the amount of crime that we've had. But we know that, let's be honest, there's been no relationship. And the way we know that is that I am sure many things were mentioned that were being done in Tobago that the Tobago House of Assembly knows absolutely nothing about. You know, the mere fact that you intend to spend $57 million on the Magdalena, and then later on in the budget you say, well, we either going to lease it or sell it. Why are you spending 57 million to then turn around and sell it? So they need to make a decision. If the government does not have money, then just sell the thing. Just like that, sell it outright, make a little money from whatever is there, and allow private investors to come in and treat with the situation.
Just like how they're going to sell off Clico, the shares in Clico.
Right. You know, so I don't think there's enough thought, or maybe we're dealing with specific thought for a specific set of people to favor a specific set of people. But, you know, I thought 57 million, you're prepared to spend 57 million that you don't have to outfit something to then turn around and sell it. Sell it outright as it is. I understand that there are offers on the table from international investors who are willing to come in and invest significant sums. But what they're saying is that the Magdalena is not really stable to do refurbishments. They want to take it down, level it, and put up fantastic new buildings. So all they wanted was the permission and the access to do it. And they have not been given. You want to spend 57 million before you enter something like that. Does not make sense. We're now hearing for the first time that the Baku, let me say it right, the Baku, oh please, how many years, generations now we don't know if the word is Buku? Anyway, that coming to Buku, you will have a new 5-star hotel. First time we're hearing about that. Has there been any consultation with the people of Tobago? We continue to be neglected, disregarded, and disrespected. You know, you just come in and tell us, listen, we put in that there, you know. And they're talking about the government-owned facility. All of the lands were vested in the THA. How the government get back those lands? Yeah? Putting up a special purpose company that lands were then sent back to them in a certain way. I mean, why? You then say that you are negotiating with Tobago plantations to purchase piece of land to do a Tobago marina. Why is the government getting involved in doing a Tobago marina? Why not investors coming in and doing that type of work? So again, if you're a government saying you don't have money, yes, because you've been into the Heritage and Stabilization Fund multiple times in your administration, you're saying you don't have money. Begin to look at things differently. Involve more foreign investments such that, you know, you spending less money, but you're acquiring all these lands in Tobago that initially you divested to the THA. You're now reacquiring them. And that's what we have.
So does the budget now bring back to the conversation, to the fore, the conversation about autonomy for Tobago? So talk me through this, because now we are sitting and waiting for money to come to Tobago. And earlier I was speaking to Councillor Tashia, Grace Boris, Secretary of Tourism there, and, you know, talking about giving us the allowance to make certain decisions as it relates to loans, investments. Is that part of the autonomy conversation? And should that conversation come back to the fore as something that is very important to ensure that we have the type of decision-making power as it relates to things that happen here on the island of Tobago? Here you're talking about why is the government getting involved in doing the marina and doing all of these things, where when we can sit here in Tobago, if we had the autonomy to make the decisions as it relates to these types of things?
You know, we do have the autonomy to make some of those decisions now. And we do need to start thinking innovatively about how we go about the management of our government. I heard that Mr. George was speaking in the interview before about sitting around the kitchen table and deciding how to manage the money. And I'm saying, you know, if you're sitting around the kitchen table, it's not the husband and wife alone sitting around the kitchen table. You have to sit around the kitchen table with all of the adults. Yes? And even the children. And you say, this is what we have. What are your thoughts in terms of how you contribute? And therefore, the Tobago House of Assembly cannot be, you know, trying to get the people riled up into a conversation when you did not even engage the people in a conversation before you settle on the budget to go to Trinidad. And when I talk about thinking innovatively, where are the communities involved in this conversation? If we organize our communities well and build capacity within our communities, you know, every community can apply for international grants and receive international grants to treat with assets in their communities in terms of developing the communities. Tobago will be way off in a better place. But we have to start thinking outside of the box. And I know that it has worked elsewhere in communities in Tobago. They have received significant sums in US dollars and in European dollars to do activities in Tobago. So if we focus on the communities and empowering the communities, we will see more income coming to Tobago. But unfortunately, the administrations want to see the monies coming to them and not necessarily to the people at that level. But monies coming to the people at that level would be still monies coming to Tobago, and we will begin to see a faster development instead of continuing every single year. How many years has it been now? Every single year, every single administration, we complaining that we have not gotten enough. You keep hitting your head against the same wall, you're going to get the same results. It's time for us to start thinking differently, bring the communities into the picture, bring them in officially. In fact, we would have gone through the communities with Dr. Vanus James recently during the constitutional reform. And communities are saying, listen, give us a budget. We want to work with our budget. We will decide what are the priorities in the area? How do we develop our asset? How do we monetize our assets? And then we can go forward from there. And I'm saying go even further. When communities are organized properly, they can apply for international grants that would see, them being able to do more for themselves. And that too is one of the biggest crime fighting and crime prevention programs that you can put in place.
Absolutely. And we're talking about involving communities, getting them, we need TTPS, always ask for communities to get involved in fighting crime and all of these types of things. And now here you are saying that communities have access to international funding, whether it's through grants or whatever, as it were. And we have to ensure also that our communities are registered, that they have some governing policy. So we have to bring them up to speed before we could get to that place. So I'm hoping that, as you said, sitting around the round table with all the adults in the room. So let's see if we can have the conversations that we need to have. And moving forward, we are where we are right now. We have the 2.599. That's the reality. We're talking about things that we should be doing. With the 2.599, before we wrap, how do you see us managing that? I know everybody's talking about prioritizing your projects. How do you see us managing that to ensure that we are able to move from where we are to where we want to be, so that by the time we come next budget, if we present something that is 3.8, 3.94 billion, and we end up with 2.1, how do we bring in that level of income for the type of development that we want to see here on the island of Tobago?
Well, one of the first things I would do immediately before we even try to build a 5-star hotel, because 5-star hotel where people come for 3 and 4 days, I don't know if the government has really done the statistical evaluation and studies across the Caribbean in terms of how much tourism really contributes to the GDPs in the different countries through what you call it, sand, sea, and sun tourism. And what we need to start thinking about is a long stay tourism program. A long stay tourism program that would far more benefit the supermarkets, the people, the taxi drivers, persons around, because you're bringing more people to live in Tobago for 6 months. We need to use that tagline that say, come live with me and come see me are two different things, right? And we need to turn it into the positive. Don't just come see me, come live with me for the experience. We have so much that would be occurring in that 6 months where people would live. I know people who have left the US and gone to places like Bali for 6 months to live, to have the whole experience of the area. They're working there. So the first thing we need to do is shore up our digital, the internet service, the data, so that when you're offering that to people, they can actually come and stay. You need to negotiate with the government such that when people are coming in, the immigration, they will give them at least a minimum of 6 months, if not more, so that they can stay and work on the island. And you will begin to see the difference there by increasing your population size. Not just in a 4-day stay where the people stay in a hotel, they really don't come out and eat, and you're hoping that the hotel would buy from the farmers. No, this is having people actually live here. They will have to go to the market. They will have to go to the supermarkets. They will have to interact with the people. They go to fetes. Come on. we need to start thinking differently about tourism for Tobago. That brings us way more, given the population size that we have on the island. And that is one of the areas we need to look at. They need to go out to communities and engage communities. Find out really what is important. You have people dying, you know, this mother with these 2 children in Palatuvia. That is ridiculous. Going to the THA for a hamper and a job, cannot get it. And now we're into so much frustration. And the community is even more frustrated now by the fact that I don't even think an autopsy has been done yet. I mean, those things, we need to work on those things, you know. Maslow hierarchy of needs. People need to make sure that we have food, shelter, clothing, and we need to go from there.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Angus, for coming on this morning and sharing your views as it relates to Budget 2025. And we do hope to have further conversations and discussions as we see how the budgetary allocation is managed here on the island of Tobago. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to go for a short break. Remember, this is an extended version of the morning show as we continue discussions on the Budget 2025 and the allocation for Tobago. So stay with us. And as you stay with us, we invite you to help us share the live, share the live, share the live. We'll be right back.